We want to now discuss more faults on the computer system. This time we are going to talk about motherboard faults. Motherboard faults. Motherboard is a major hardware component. Motherboard is a major hardware component. And you must know what could be some possible faults on the motherboard and how to deal with such faults. The motherboard has connected to it so many components, such as the RAM, the power supply unit, the optical drive. We connect power from several hardware components to the from motherboard to several components, and then we connect data using SATA cables, between the motherboard and different hardware components such as optical drive, HDD, and the rest. So there could be problems emanating from the motherboard that will not make the computer to function well. And there could be minor ones and there could be major faults. Like I told you, when you are dealing with computer faults, you will first of all imagine the simplest. You think of the simplest among all the problems and begin to solve the problem starting from there. And when a motherboard is having problem, there could be several things, several symptoms that you see on the computer that tells you there's a problem from the board, from the motherboard. For example, you start a computer, you power it on, and the computer goes off by itself and restarts again. It may be a motherboard problem. Restart itself may be a motherboard problem. Okay? Also, the computer may be booting up, and suddenly it goes to a screen, the blue screen. We call that blue screen BSOD. 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 That is blue screen of death. BSOD. I don't know whether you have experienced that when your computer just suddenly went to that blue screen and you cannot do anything, just stay on that blue screen. Then you force the computer to go off and then you restart it again. It is called BSOD, blue screen of death. At that point, the processor, the functionality of the computer, it doesn't know what to do next. So when it gets to that place, it gets stuck there. I cannot proceed, cannot move out, cannot move in, cannot go off. Just get stuck onto that screen. You see, it can be a problem from motherboard that causes that. Then sometimes there are faults that we call a distended capacitor. When you see the capacitor on the motherboard and the capacitor begins swelling up, it becomes swollen up. They are called distended capacitor. In that case, the motherboard is having serious problem, and you should be thinking of replacing the motherboard when you have capacitors being swollen up on the motherboard in that manner. Distended capacitor. Alright? Then sometimes the minor problem, there will be minor problem on the motherboard, such as power not reaching the motherboard properly from the power supply unit. So that is a minor problem, and that is where you must start from when you are having issues with the motherboard. Check minor issues first. Disconnect cables and reconnect them properly. The power cable, the SATA cable, and so on and so forth. Disconnect them and reconnect them properly. And if you have been using a PC for so long time, you need to first of all start from maintenance work, such as dusting the entire system, probably removing the motherboard, dusting it properly with a air blower. Mark you must use low air current blower. Otherwise, if the current is so high, you can spoil certain components, such as the fan, on the processor, because the fan is made of very slight, delicate plastic. If you see the fan, it's made of plastic, not metal, and it's delicate. Too much force, even air, can use to blow the fan, can break it. That means you have to go and buy another fan, because a broken fan will not cool computer well. It will not cool your processor well. So you have to be careful when you are blowing with air. Sometimes some technicians will actually wash the motherboard. They wash it carefully and place it inside sun for it to dry well before they bring it back to the system. That cleaning alone can clear faults. Because when there is too much accumulation of dirt on the motherboard, then there could be faults. So there should be regular or routine maintenance, such as cleaning, removing dirt and clogs from the air vents on the vent hole around the computer or inside the computer in the components of the motherboard. Cleaning alone can prevent breakdown of the system. But when it has broken down, we have several symptoms that can show us that, oh, this problem is board problem, motherboard problem. Okay? Alright. If the motherboard is not receiving power, you must think about the cabling, the connectors from the power supply unit to the motherboard. First of all, you think about that. You plug and unplug them, plug and unplug, so that you know whether that one will solve the problem. And also, there could be shorting problem. We call it shorting, short circuits. Short circuits. That one too can cause problem. And then, part of the motherboard problem will be a weak or bad CMOS battery. When CMOS battery is flat or is running flat, it can also cause errors on certain functionalities, such as date, time, when the computer is booting. It is also coming from the motherboard because it's a motherboard component that is faulty there, which is the CMOS battery. We discussed about CMOS battery earlier. You know the function of CMOS battery. It's giving power to the firmware inside BIOS that maintain certain program for the system to boot up immediately you are booting it. Right? Other problems also can be overheating. Faults may result from overheating, probably overheating of the processor or overheating of the other internal components of the motherboard. Right? Another problem could be a CPU that is not well seated. A CPU that is not well seated may also cause problem on the motherboard. So you need to check the CPU, processor lock, carefully remove it and put it back and lock it properly. A CPU that is not seated well can cause a problem. So these are also common faults of the motherboard. CPU, that is a central processing unit, the processor. Now, also, when there are too many connections on the motherboard that are not used, unused adapters, the best thing is to remove them because it will be causing error in the future. This particular adapter is no longer being used. It has to be removed. It can cause error on the motherboard. Now, these are some of the symptoms that you will see when the motherboard is having issue. And then you must also note that motherboard faults, they are similar in symptoms to that of processor faults. You get that point? The symptom you see is similar. Symptoms are similar to that of processor having faults. And these are some of the symptoms that you see. 1, you turn on the system does not display anything. Even though there is power there, but there's nothing. It's not showing anything. It's a symptom that the motherboard may have problem. System not displaying anything. That is no display. No display. Okay? For motherboard. It can be from motherboard, also from processor, it's possible.
Also the symptoms.
Symptoms, yes. Then another one could be error code. You see error on the screen. Error codes that shows that the motherboard, maybe motherboard is not present or something. That could be error code. Sometimes beeping, you hear beep, yes. Noise. Those beep, we know the meaning of those beeps because they coded those beeps to actually tell the technician where the fault is coming from. So with experience, you'll be able to identify the meaning of a code, which part of the computer is having problem. Alright? Sometimes we can have one or more bip codes. Bip codes. Can have one or more. Then we can also have a system lock. There are something system lock. System locks. You know, instead just Steve. Just Steve. Freeze it there, nothing is happening again. You move the mouse, nothing happening. You try to tap the keyboard, nothing. The computer is not responding any longer. It may be a fault from the motherboard. Are you there? Are you there? Yes. All right. Then we mention Windows issue, BSOD. BSOD is a symptom. Blue screen of death. Blue screen of death. Then the modules may be failing modules. Maybe adapter cards, they begin to fail. Expansion slots, they are not working again. Some ports are not working. For instance, you want to use a flash drive from outside the system, you plug in, nothing is happening. The computer does not see it. That problem is coming from where? From the motherboard. It's a problem, it's a fault of the motherboard. Alright? So, and then the motherboard problems can be very difficult. But most of the time, when the motherboard is having issue, what you do is to replace the motherboard. But there are some minor issues that you can actually clear with minor troubleshooting and repair. And we have mentioned some of those things today that you can do. Cleaning is one aspect. Ensuring that inside of the process, the motherboard of the computer is clean. No dirt, no accumulation of dirt. Regular routine maintenance. Then when you have the extended capacitor that is bulky, what is going. Even if the computer is still working, there will be fault somewhere. So in order not to continue like that, it's booted up. That black screen, when the computer is running POSC, power on self test, you must check what is happening in the screen to know where the problem comes from. And that is also when we see error codes and bip codes, one or more bip codes, to identify that there's a problem somewhere in the computer system. All right. And then I think I mentioned clearly how to clear some of these faults, plug and unplug cables, reset the CPU, reset the RAM. Sometimes the problem may also come from RAM, but it's actually related to the motherboard. If the RAM is not well fixed into the slots, it can cause a problem. The computer will not start up, but most likely it will be shown on the screen that RAM is missing. So you can reset the RAM, reset adapter cards, reset CPU. How do we understand what we mean by receipts? Remove them and fix them back. Connect it properly back, firmly into the position. Then another main problem that can cause motherboard problem is, when you install motherboard, we install motherboard to the case using what we call standoffs. Standoffs, they are insulating material, like plastic material that they use to hold the bottom of the board, such that the bottom of the board will not touch the case of the computer. But when there's a problem and the motherboard is touching the case, then there will be faults. So you must ensure, in order to avoid that fault, that motherboard is well insulated from the case. It must not touch the case. So that fault that may result will be prevented in that manner. But it can actually happen. So you must check that the motherboard is not touching. I mentioned it earlier, I say short circuit. Yes. Motherboard touching the case will cause shorting or short-circuiting. Shorting problem. So we must ensure that that is not happening. Okay. Then check the CMOS battery. If the CMOS battery is bad, immediately it will be replaced. Alright? Check the voltages going from power supply to the motherboard, connect and reconnect. Or you can even connect the system, remove the cable, and use multimeter to check the voltages. When the voltages are there or not, to ensure that power is getting to the motherboard. Check for overheating. If the fan is working and it's not it's not running the way it should, there could be overheating. Then we need to check for overheating of the fan, of the motherboard, internal components, and the processor. So we must check the fans, whether the fans are working well, especially the case fan and the fan on the processor. All right. Also, BIOS or UEFI can be checked for settings. There could be certain settings that you need to change to ensure the computer works fine. All right. So these are the various issues that we can have with the motherboard. And so with experience, all these faults can be cleared. But more often than not, the motherboard will need to be replaced. And when you are replacing components, remember, you talk about form factor, you talk about compatibility, you talk about power rating. When we are replacing parts in the computer system. Compatibility is important because not every motherboard that have the same motherboard that have the same what was it called form factor, yes, that are compatible with the system we are using. Because the generations of computer, they differ. And that's why we're talking about compatibility. Because generations, differ. So, for instance, Pentium 4, Windows Vista, Windows 10, Windows this, Windows that, Windows 7. It's not all board that, will be compatible. And remember also, 32-bit system, 64-bit system. Will the board be just be compatible with everything? No. So, we must consider compatibility, form factor, power rating. So don't forget, like and share this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. You can smash the notification bell so that you get us until next time when I bring another video. Bye bye.